The knock sent a jolt through my evening routine, slicing through the comforting hum of my apartment like a hot knife through butter. When I swung the door open, I was met with an unexpected sight. My mom, who had disappeared 9 years ago without so much as a wave goodbye, stood grinning like she was just popped in for tea. Next to her, my half-brother Caleb lounged casually, flicking his thumbs across his phone, practically moving in. Talk about a surprise party gone wrong. As she stepped inside, I braced myself for impact. "I heard you make good money now," she chirped, her eyes scanning the cluttered space like some sort of maestro looking for the perfect note. Caleb joined in, his smirk practically a permanent fixture. "You can cover 60 grand for tuition, 3,000 a month. No sweat." My blood pressure hit the roof, but instead of marching out a retort, I swallowed a river of frustration. This was no casual visit, it was an unannounced visit from a SWAT team of family demands. Ohio. Where winters dragged on longer than a bad road trip and fried food clung to my dad like a loyal puppy. He ran a tiny diner bursting with character, 3 red booths, a flickering neon sign, and a coffee pot that probably had its own Instagram account. After Mom bailed, the diner became our sanctuary. I vividly remember the day she left. One moment I was a kid, and the next I was watching her suitcase roll away. Better life. The words echoed in my mind as I replayed that car speeding off. Did better mean without me? While Dad wrestled with the diner and the heartbreak of a hollow home, he wore the dual hats of father and mother, stretching himself like taffy to keep us afloat. Every morning, he was up at dawn, lighting the grill and embracing the smell of bacon grease like a long-lost friend. I'd return from school to find him worn out, often dozing off mid-question about math club, but I'd just smile and nod. We navigated our reality with a dash of humor, even as the bills piled up like dirty dishes in the sink. Money was about as abundant as a unicorn sighting, tapping the lights whenever the heater kicked in was a daily game. I kicked off the hustle early, finding odd jobs at 12, babysitting at 13, and gleaning pennies from houses by 14. All the money brought in was squeezed into rent and groceries, while I brushed aside Dad's warnings that I shouldn't worry. To me, worrying was just my twisted way of showing I cared. School was my secret escape, a world built on numbers that made sense when family dynamics didn't. I dove headfirst into the math club, leading me to competitions where I actually felt competent. On the cusp of 17, I received a full scholarship for a data analytics program. The night my acceptance letter showed up, I witnessed Dad tear up while clutching a dish rag behind the diner's counter. "You're getting out, Jess, making something bigger than this." His faith fueled my ambition in ways he'd never fully understand. College was a roller coaster ride, but the thrill was mine for the taking. With tuition covered, the reality of rent, food, and textbooks loomed like annoying smoke in a bar. I turned into a daytime waitress, an afternoon legal secretary, and a nighttime office cleaner, zipping on public buses and chowing down on instant noodles between lectures. Exhaustion became my companion, however, with every paycheck and every lecture, I stitched together my own dream bigger than I ever imagined. Finally, graduation arrived, a whirlwind of cap-flinging, tears, and euphoric triumph. I secured a job offer in Orlando as a data analyst at a tech company buzzing with potential. As I embraced this new chapter, my heart raced with the thrill of carving out my space in the world. Goodbye diner life, hello dreams in neon lights and a future driven by my relentless spirit. The first paycheck hit me square in the face like a surprise splash of cold water. It was more than my dad had ever brought home in a month. Unable to contain my excitement and gratitude, I shot him over $500 the instant it landed in my account. "No," he protested, insisting he didn't want me to feel obligated. But I was determined. After years of hard work, my dad deserved a break, even a small one. Months rolled into years, and with every promotion came a step closer to my dreams. I snagged a sleek downtown apartment in Florida, complete with ceiling-to-floor windows revealing a skyline that made my heart race. Lunchtime became a lively affair with Nina from accounting, weekend adventures with Kara, and caffeine-boosted chats with Ryan, the neighbor who roamed the halls with double-fisted mugs like it was a superpower. My social circle blossomed, but then there were those nagging nights filled with dusty memories. Opening a drawer became a ritual, a journey down memory lane as I faced a pile of old birthday cards from Mom. Each card glimmered with borrowed joy, a hollow happy birthday laced with an awkward hope you're doing okay. No warmth, just cruel reminders of her absence. I would stare at those pitiable scraps of paper, wondering if I had been so unworthy that she chose to leave. So, when Mom reappeared out of nowhere one crisp autumn evening, it felt like a sitcom plot twist gone sideways. The day after her unexpected knock at the door, I hardly slept a wink. The haunting image of her smile and my brother Caleb's cocky grin danced in my brain, refusing to fade. Had she come to make amends? Could she possibly want to bridge the 23-year chasm between us? But echoing in my mind were her words about family helping family, ringing like an insidious chime rather than a heartfelt invitation. By morning, her text pinged on my screen, proposing a catch-up over lunch. Curiosity clawed at my instincts, perhaps I could finally close this chapter for good. The cafe buzzed with life when we met, the rich aroma of espresso intertwined with the chatter swirling around us. Instantly, I spotted them. Mom was donning a flower-patterned blouse far too fancy for someone living paycheck to paycheck, while Caleb slumped next to her, immersed in his phone. Mom sprung up, and her tight hug reeked of unfamiliar perfume. I steered clear of Caleb's gaze, determined to focus on the awkward reunion ahead. Our meeting shifted from small talk about my hair to a discussion veiled in rehearsed sincerity as she lamented, "You know your father made it impossible for me to stay in touch." My blood boiled beneath my skin. "That's not true," I refuted quietly. "He begged for you to call." I could feel a wall of disconnection around us as she waved off my protests, her eyes dancing with false innocence about her struggles post-divorce. Caleb finally piped in with a snarky comment, evoking laughter that grated against my sanity. With a nonchalant wave of her hand, she laid her request bare. "Caleb's tuition is $60,000. We just need a little help getting started. Maybe $3,000 a month until he's settled." Panic shot through my veins. Did I just hear $3,000 a month? The casual way she presented it felt like a punch to the gut. "How do you even know what I make?" I demanded, eyes narrowing. For a fleeting moment, she faltered, but promptly hid behind a flurry of excuses, claiming people talk. "Yeah, as if that would ever fly with me." My father's voice rang through my head like a bad pop song stuck on repeat. "Keep your accounts private, Jules," he always warned. "Some people only see what they can take." Caleb, leaning over the table like he owned the joint, smirked. "Come on, you're our family. You should want to help." My stomach churned. "Family doesn't mean I'm ATM Sarah." My mother's smile faltered, the sweetness morphing into an unappealing blend of guilt and manipulation. I pushed my chair back, shaking my head. Just like the customers who tried to guilt-trip Dad into discount dinners at our family restaurant. "I'll think about it," I eventually replied, the words tasting like betrayal. Caleb's eye roll could double as a gym exercise. "Yeah, sure you will," he quipped. Mom expertly shifted tones, almost scolding me with, "Don't forget who raised you." Ouch, that hit home. I grabbed my bag, heart racing. "Dad raised me, not you," I thought, striding defiantly out the door before the trembling in my voice could escape. Stepping outside, the Florida sun was glaring like it was auditioning for a lead role in Melt My Soul. The realization struck me hard. This lunch wasn't about reconnecting, it had been reconnaissance. And as if that wasn't bad enough, I knew they'd be back, like a poorly executed sitcom rerun. Sure enough, 2 nights later, their absence of subtlety knocked on my door again. I hesitated, praying it was a package deal from a pizza place. Alas, it was my mom, armed with her unsettling, super sweet smile. "Just in the neighborhood," she chirped, breezing past me. Caleb trailed behind, plopping his sneakers onto my faded rug like he was declaring ownership of the couch. "Nice place," he commented, scrolling through his phone dismissively. I could barely contain myself. Why are you really here? I asked, my voice like a sharp knife. My mother scanned the apartment, her gaze lingering on my framed degrees, and then suddenly decided it was just a little chat. Yeah, right. No tension between us would mean no asking for cash. Her smile contorted. You have so much. Caleb's trying to build a future. I folded my arms, doing my best impression of a defensive wall. I understand, Mom. I lived it. Caleb just laughed, shrugging as if my past was some sitcom punchline. Yeah, but you're doing fine now. No big deal, right? Cue the side eye from Mom. Just a little help. $3,000 a month isn't much to you. That's when the self-control slipped, like butter on hot toast. How would you know what's much to me? My voice had a slight tremor. It was my heart sinking at the thought of their audacity. I heard things, she said breezily, and then pointedly glanced at my desk. My gut sank, and before I could stop him, Caleb was prancing over to my laptop. What are you doing? I asked, hyperventilating. Just checking how rich you are, he retorted, smirk firmly in place while I felt heart palpitations creeping in. Why hide anything, Sarah? We're family. Mom chimed in honeyed sarcasm that dripped with just a hint of menace. I slammed my laptop shut, the noise resonated through the air like a party popper gone wrong. You went through my things, I exclaimed. Mom folded her arms, her voice sharp as shards of glass. Don't be dramatic. We just wanted to see how you're doing. How I was doing. I could barely contain my rising fury. You hacked Dad's email for my job info. Mom paled, defending herself pathetically. Don't blame me for your father's failures. Of course, she would twist it that way. Caleb shot out some nonsense about Dad being a loser. That was it. It wasn't just about money anymore, it was about respect, boundaries, and maybe a little bit of emotional healing, which was obviously lost on my family. So I stood firm, my resolve boiling over in a way that would make even boiling water proud. The room around me wavered as my heart thudded in my chest like a marching band on a caffeine high. Get out, I said, my voice steady despite the raging adrenaline. Mom blinked, looking genuinely surprised, as if I had just asked her to juggle flaming swords. Excuse me, she said, a smirk creeping in. But I pushed on. Get out before I call the police. The look on Caleb's face was priceless, a mix of disbelief and utter annoyance that could only come from someone deeply unprepared for a family drama. Mom's mask of calm slipped, revealing the steel behind her smile. You'll regret this, Sarah. One day you'll need us, she bellowed, but the words barely stirred me. I shot back, I've needed you for 20 years, and you weren't there. It was like I had unleashed a storm with that statement, and as they hesitated, I slammed the door shut, drowning in the thunderous silence that followed. Shockingly, it felt less like solitude and instead tasted like freedom, laced with a sharp resolve I didn't know I possessed. That night, perched at the edge of my bed, I stared at the laptop they'd so carelessly touched, the anger within me no longer a frazzled whirlwind but a cold, cutting edge. I reminisced about how I once thought silence was synonymous with peace. Now, it had turned into a weapon in my hands. My instincts kicked in, and I cracked the digital safe they had so thoughtlessly left unguarded. As a data analyst, my eyes were trained to spot when chaos lurked beneath the surface. In no time, I stumbled upon a forwarded email from my father's account to Mom. The subject line glanced at my full name and held the rigged payroll summary I'd sent him ages ago for tax filing assistance. The email had a timestamp from an IP address that screamed suspicious. My hands trembled, yet clarity washed over me like a refreshing rain. I printed everything with giddy determination, shoving it into a folder and slapping a label on it, evidence. Before I could overthink it, I punched Dad's number into my phone. His voice, a friendly melody of years spent sipping coffee and debating the best superhero, replied, "Hey kiddo. Everything okay?" I leaned into the soft tone, Did you send Mom my salary info? After a pregnant pause, he replied, No, I'd never, and suddenly it hit us both. She's been in my email, hasn't she? He said, his voice heavy with resignation. Just a hint of relief flickered in my chest. I'm handling it, Dad. I just needed you to know. The very next morning, I sat down with Mark Sullivan, a lawyer recommended by a colleague. He nodded through my account of the email hack and the chaotic visit from my parents, his cool demeanor anchoring me amidst the whirlwind. You have proof, he said confidently, a phrase that tasted like euphoria. I slid the folder across his desk, and the ensuing discussion about a restraining order and notifying the bank felt like taking a deep breath of pristine air after years of pollution. It was downright liberating, feeling validated as a victim turned vigilant. With a flurry of password changes and two-factor authentication, I secured my digital boundaries like a fortress. I even went as far as ordering new locks for my door. Walking into court the next morning was surreal. The air tasted sterile and buzzing with echoes of other cases. The sound of a clerk stamping my papers was like a victorious war drum, reverberating with finality. In that moment, I transformed from the frightened girl who watched her mother drive away into a determined adult, ready to lay down and defend the law. Just days later, my phone lit up with a warning from the bank about a suspicious transaction attempt, a hefty $10,000 trying to waltz out of my savings. I stared at it in disbelief before a laugh bubbled up inside me. She'd tried again and missed. I shot the alert over to Mark, who responded with the confidence of a well-fed lion. They're covered by the order, and they'll face consequences. I basked in satisfaction, not with the fiery pitch of vengeance, but a gentle calm, akin to finally closing a book that had been left hauntingly open for far too long. A week later, I waltzed into Dad's diner, now a beacon of brightness after we tackled those old debts together. The scent of grilled onions and fresh coffee engulfed me the moment I stepped inside. Dad looked up from behind the counter, beaming like a proud sunflower. You look lighter, he said, and I couldn't help but beam back. I am, I declared, and oh, how true that felt. That night back in Orlando, the city lights twinkled below my window like a sky full of friendly stars. At last, I felt secure. My mother had stripped me of countless things, my childhood, trust, and even worse, my peace. But she wouldn't snag my future. So, I poured myself another glass of water and opened my laptop, finally bringing to life a cherished dream, the foster fund. A joyful crusade for kids raised by single parents, just like I had been. It wasn't revenge, it was mine to reclaim. A whole year passed without a whisper of her name, thanks to a restraining order that wrapped my life in tranquility. Mornings transformed into blissful rituals of coffee brewing and sunlight painting my apartment floor instead of anxiety-driven chaos. One evening, Dad's call interrupted my peaceful drive home. Guess who reached out? He said with cautious enthusiasm. Your Aunt Ruth. My heart did a little jig. About time. I chuckled, but then he mentioned her wanted to talk about my mother. My laughter faded. Chatting with Aunt Ruth the following day revealed a saga draped in regret. Marie burned every bridge, she confessed. She borrowed, lied, and demanded help, but the truth caught up with her. It was strange, I didn't feel triumphant. Instead, I felt a deep stillness. I hope she finds what she's seeking, I replied softly. Ruth sighed, her voice echoing Dad's wisdom. That silence wrapped around me, keeping her chaos at bay. I didn't need updates, my newfound peace was more alluring. Therapy became a lifeline, guiding me to a truth I struggled to name. My guilt for surviving outweighed her betrayal. Dr. Brooks had dropped this wisdom bomb on me. You can't heal in the same story that broke you. I took that mantra to heart and crafted a new narrative. Within months, the foster fund flourished, offering scholarships for kids from single-parent homes and mentorship programs. Friends from work rallied behind me, transforming my dreams into reality. The first time I signed a grant check, my mind danced back to the diner lights flickering in Ohio, seeing Dad flipping pancakes to barely keep the lights on. I could finally put an end to that cycle. Sure, sometimes I found myself half expecting another knock on the door, but it never came. Now, silence stood as my fortress, safety wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Last Thanksgiving, Dad visited Orlando for dinner, and the aroma of our turkey and mashed potatoes filled the air as we cooked together. Raising his glass, Dad said with a proud glint, "You did good, kiddo." That statement hit home as I looked around the table, surrounded by friends and laughter. I hadn't just survived, I'd rebuilt. On the night of the foster fund's first anniversary, I stood on a rooftop terrace overlooking Orlando's buzzing skyline. Dad mingled with my friends, laughter floating in the warm air, an echo of joy I once thought other people owned. As I admired the shimmering sign of the foster fund, I thought of the girl I used to be, waiting by the diner window for her mother's car to reappear down that street. She never showed up, but perhaps that was the point. Her absence pushed me to discover who I really was. With my glass raised high, I whispered, "This is family." I turned the camera toward the audience, sharing that if you've ever had to draw a line for your piece, know you're not alone. Family isn't just blood, it's those who stand by you when the world crumbles. If this story resonated, give it a like, share it, and let's hear your tale in the comment. Your voice matters.